There is a specific kind of darkness that only exists on the Northern California coast. It isn't just the absence of light, it's a physical weight. The locals call it the Great Gray Funk, a fog so dense it swallows the Pacific Ocean whole, leaving you alone in a pressurized cabin of glass and steel, hurtling through a void. Most people driving Highway 1 at 2 in the morning are trying to outrun something. Their own thoughts, a dead-end job in the city, or the crushing silence of the coastline. But on the night of November 12th, a man named David Miller wasn't running. He was just heading home. David is a software architect, a man of logic, code, and provable data. He doesn't believe in ghosts. He doesn't believe in vibes. Or at least he didn't. Not until he hit the stretch of road just south of Thornton State Beach. Not until he reached the rusted, salt-pitted sign that marks mile marker 42. To understand what happened to David, you have to understand the geography of mile marker 42. It sits on a hairpin turn where the cliffs drop 300 feet into a graveyard of jagged rocks and white foam. The wind here doesn't blow, it screams. David describes the air inside his car shifting the moment he passed the marker. He checked his climate control. The temperature readout dropped from 72 degrees to 48 in a matter of seconds. He thought it was a mechanical failure, a glitch in the sensor. Then his headlights hit the yellow. Most urban legends feature a lady in white. It's a trope, a cliché that has lost its teeth. But David's account is different. He saw a girl in a saturated, heavy-duty yellow raincoat, the kind of thick vinyl fishermen wear to survive a gale. The hood was up, shielding her face from the torrential downpour. She wasn't waving. She wasn't frantic. She was just standing perfectly still on the edge of the asphalt, right where the shoulder disappears into the abyss. David hit the brakes. His tires hydroplaned for a terrifying half-second, a sensation he describes as floating on oil, before the car gripped the road and came to a halt 20 feet past her. He looked in his rearview mirror. The fog was pulsing behind him, illuminated by his red brake lights. For a moment, he saw nothing but the mist. Then, the passenger door handle clicked. David says his first instinct was fear, but it was quickly replaced by a strange, overwhelming sense of duty, as if his free will had been slightly dampened by the atmosphere. The girl climbed in. She didn't look at him. She smelled intensely of sea salt and something David could only describe as old library books, that sweet, decaying scent of vanilla and lignin. "Thank you," she said. Her voice wasn't a whisper. It was clear, but it sounded distant, like a phone call from a long way off. David asked her where she was going. He was expecting her to say Half Moon Bay or perhaps a local motel. Instead, she gave him an address in the heart of San Francisco's Richmond district, 1428 Steiner Street. Steiner Street is famous for its Victorians, the painted ladies, that define the city's skyline. But the address she gave was deep in the residential sector, an hour's drive back the way David had just come. "I can't go all the way back to the city tonight," David told her. "But I can drop you at a station in Pacifica. We can call you a cab." The girl didn't argue. She just stared straight ahead through the rain-streaked windshield. David noticed then that despite the downpour outside, her yellow coat wasn't dripping. It was bone dry. As they drove, David tried to make conversation. He asked her what she was doing out so late, if her car had broken down, if she lived nearby. She turned her head then. David says her face was youthful, maybe 19 or 20, but her eyes looked heavy, not tired, but weighted, like she had seen the same stretch of road 10,000 times. "I was looking for the soil," she whispered. David laughed nervously. "The soil? At mile 42? There's nothing there but rocks and ice plant." She didn't laugh back. "The soil remembers what the water tries to wash away," she replied. This is where the story shifts from a strange encounter to something David calls a glitch in the record. He began to notice the radio. He had been listening to a technical podcast, but the audio started to warp. The voices slowed down, deepening into a guttural growl, before snapping into a burst of music. It wasn't modern music. It was a live recording of a jazz ensemble. He could hear the clinking of glasses in the background and the murmur of a crowd. "I love this place," the girl said. David looked at her. "The radio?" he asked. "The club," she replied. The jazz cellar. It's Friday night. My father is waiting. David felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. The jazz cellar was a legendary spot in the Fillmore district that had closed its doors forever in the early 70s. He looked back at the road, his heart hammering against his ribs. He decided then and there that he was dropping this girl off at the first lit building he saw. He pushed the gas pedal down, wanting the safety of a gas station or a street lamp. The Audi's engine roared, but the speedometer stayed pinned at exactly 42 miles per hour. No matter how hard he pressed, the car would not accelerate. They reached the Tom Lantis tunnels, the massive concrete tubes that cut through the mountain at Devil's Slide. In the bright, artificial orange glow of the tunnel lights, David stole a glance at the passenger seat. In the harsh light, he saw it. The yellow raincoat was there. The seatbelt was buckled over it. But the coat was empty. There was no head in the hood, no hands coming out of the sleeves. The coat was inflated as if a body were inside it, but where the skin should be, there was only the dark, textured fabric of the car seat. David screamed. He slammed on the brakes, skidding sideways in the middle of the tunnel. He sat in the silence for 3 minutes, his hands shaking so violently he couldn't grip the steering wheel. He was alone. He reached over, his fingers trembling, and touched the yellow raincoat. It collapsed. Like a balloon losing air, the garment crumpled into a heap on the leather seat. It was soaking wet now. Water, cold, salty seawater, began to pool in the bucket seat, dripping onto the floorboards. David didn't wait. He threw the car into gear and floored it. The 42 miles per hour limit was gone. He hit 90 by the time he exited the tunnel. He didn't stop until he reached a 24-hour diner in Daly City. He walked inside, drenched in sweat, and called his brother, a history teacher. "I need you to look up an address," David gasped. 1428 Steiner Street. "Tell me who lived there." His brother called back 10 minutes later. His voice was flat. "David, that address doesn't exist anymore. It was part of a block that was cleared for urban renewal in the late 60s. But I checked the old census records. A family lived there named Vance. They had a daughter, Ilara. She disappeared in November 1968. They found her car at the bottom of a cliff near mile marker 42. She was a botany student at SF State. She was out there taking soil samples when she went over the edge." David Miller's story is terrifying, but it isn't unique. When he finally went to the authorities, he expected to be laughed out of the room. Instead, a veteran sergeant took him into a back office and opened a filing cabinet labeled Non-Standard Occurrences. Inside were dozens of statements dating back 50 years. The yellow raincoat, the smell of sea salt, the jazz cellar, and the address that no longer exists. But there is one detail in David's story that the police hadn't heard before. A detail that suggests Ilara Vance wasn't just a victim of a car accident. When David folded the yellow raincoat to move it to his trunk, he found a small, laminated ID card tucked into the pocket. It was an SF State student ID. The name on the card was Ilara Vance. But the photo wasn't the smiling portrait of a student. The girl in the photo was screaming, her face pressed against a glass pane. And in the background of the ID photo, standing behind her, was the blurred reflection of a man in a suit holding a camera. A man who, 50 years later, is one of the most powerful figures in San Francisco politics. The record isn't just a haunting, it's a piece of evidence. And it's finally starting to play. Subscribe and activate the bell to the Gloom Record for the full 3 parts investigation. To be continued.